everything that I've just built over the last few years just went to crap. Now I just got a bunch of debt.
Chris Boudreau is a serial entrepreneur behind 7 ventures, 4 successful exits, and the first AI-native customer growth platform. From startups to 8-figure exits, he's helped reshape industries across the US, Canada, and Europe.
My bank basically collapsed or went through a massive restructuring during the financial crisis. I was 34 at the time. I was the number 2 guy in lending. I thought, maybe I should start my own business. And so that's what I did next. Within a couple of years, had built the largest delivery business in the nation in cannabis and ended up selling that years later.
There's an element of life that is outside of the algorithms in AI. There's creativity, there's innovation. Here's what's happening. We're stopped using our own human creativity and now we're relying on AI. We don't innovate creativity when we iterate on our own creativity.
I felt that there was a place for automated technology, and I thought there needs to be one system that puts all these together and simplifies the whole thing, but then wraps in automations. And the first week it was out publicly, we started using it. We said, this is the solution we were looking for. I've probably failed more than most people, but I've won more than most people. I think the difference between me and most people is that I've just always gotten back up. You're only going to succeed if you keep trying.
Inspiring business leaders. Voices that move the world forward.
Welcome to Inspiring Business Leaders. Today I'm here with Chris Boudreau, and a business tycoon, multiple businesses, the nonprofit sector, doing great things with AI. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today.
You're...
So, Chris, tell us a little bit more about you. Where are you from? Where you grew up, and how'd you end up here in San Diego?
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up in Central California in a place called Fresno. Don't hold that against me. It's actually a lovely town.
I'm from Modesto, so don't hold that against me either.
Okay, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. So, well, you would know. You're only about an hour away. Center of the state, and I think a good family environment. I moved to San Diego actually to take over as the head of underwriting for a small bank about 20 years ago.
Wow. And what did you do when you were underwriting at the bank? What does that mean?
So I was in corporate banking, or commercial banking is more appropriately called, or the terminology in the bank. And so I would look at complex business loans, usually larger deals. So basically what happens is if somebody wants just a couple $100,000, maybe $500,000, they would just go into a bank, and there's kind of a streamlined application that's mostly based on credit. But if you want a few $1 million, if you want $10 million, if you want more, there's a lot of risk to the bank. And banks only charge small amounts of interest, right? So they have people like me that would say, okay, hey, let me go out, sit down with the business owner. Let me talk to them about their business. Let me learn about what they're doing. Let me learn what their business model is, what their growth plans are. Why do you need the money? Are you challenged? Are you looking to grow? Are you not managing things well? So some of it's getting to know the management, the ownership of the company, evaluating what they're doing. Some of it is looking at their financials, both their tax returns and their financials, and understanding, like, does this make sense? And then doing some financial forecasting and saying, okay, if you build this business, or if we give you this money and you build whatever you're looking to do, with this money, does it help you get in a better position, or do you actually get in a worse position? Do you? And so there's that, and then decide whether or not it makes sense for the bank to do.
So you're the guy behind the scenes approving this?
Well, I wouldn't. In my earlier roles as a commercial banker, I would meet with the business owners, do the analysis, and then present it to somebody that would approve it. In my later roles, yes, I was the person reviewing and approving.
Wow.
And then my last role in banking, I moved up to where I was the number 2 guy in lending, and I was reviewing the large deals. I was also writing some loan policy for the bank.
Wow.
And some other fairly boring but important things for the bank that were really good in helping kick off my career, because it taught me a lot about how do you look at businesses, how do you run a business, how do you decide what you want to do.
I want to get back into that because that's interesting.
Sure.
I'm sure you learned some great strategy, what to look for. Is this a sinking ship? Is it look like it's destined for greatness? I do want to retouch after we talk about you a little bit, but
Sure.
I think that's very interesting. It seems like you learned a great deal about how to run a successful business or not a successful business. So you went to banking, and then what?
Then my bank basically collapsed or went through a massive restructuring during the financial crisis.
2008?
Yeah, 2008. And the bank turned over almost every single employee. It was a smaller bank, but everybody except for 2 tellers ended up getting turned over in a several month period during this restructuring. And I was one of those people. And so I thought, I was 34 at the time. I was the number 2 guy in lending. I thought, maybe I should start my own business. I've seemed to have done pretty well. And so I looked around for about 6 months at different business models and kept coming back to this idea that I wasn't real comfortable with. But I had this idea that this new business model would become an emerging market opportunity. I didn't really know much about it, but I've been pretty good at predicting trends, economic trends, business trends. And in 2008, from about 2006, I had this feeling, watching the news, seeing things develop, that cannabis would become an emerging market. And so in 2000, and I was just talking to friends of mine that were stoners. I always thought it was funny. But in 2008, I spent about 6 months thinking about it. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get my master's degree in accounting. And I'll look at a couple different business ideas. And I finally ended up in the spot where I thought, okay, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start a cannabis business. And so that's what I did next.
What kind of cannabis business?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, what would you do if you were going to start a cannabis business? What would you do? What would be your approach? It's especially back then where it was really taboo, but it seemed to be legal. The first thing I did is I went and met with a few different attorneys, and I wanted to make sure I understood: is this legal? Is there a path to make this legal? And then, if so, what do you do? How do you make it legal? What business models can you have? And most people at the time were either growing or having a retail storefront. I looked at it, I'm like, growing's got a long learning curve. I'm not going to figure this out. I think I can figure out the retail piece, but I'd rather do delivery so I don't have a sign over my head that says, come arrest me here, just in case there was any trouble. So I started, and within a couple of years had built the largest delivery business in the nation in cannabis. Did pretty well with that and ended up selling that a few years later.
Was the license expensive?
The time they didn't have licenses.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very weird...
It was medical back then, before it was recreational, right?
Yeah.
So were you doing that when it was more of a medical status?
And it was a very weird set of laws. The law did not say you could sell cannabis. The law said if you get arrested, you have a legal defense for cannabis. They call it a affirmative defense. It was written backwards for no good reason, and it ended up creating more challenges for everybody than they thought. So as long as you properly formed under the laws of the state of California, created a corporation, paid taxes, did all that, manage your employees, then you could operate under the laws of the state of California. And so that's what I did.
Interesting. After you sold it, what'd you do?
Well, so I started delivery, and then in 2013, I said, I should have a store. And San Diego was one of the first cities in the nation, one of the earliest, to start a process that would allow you to get a permitted store. And so I started working on a permitted store for here in the city of San Diego. And in 2014, I started the first distribution business in cannabis, the first true full-line distribution business in cannabis. And so as I was going, I would see opportunities, and I just started building some other business models and exploring some things. I had a very early CBD business, and with some other things I had going on, I ended up shutting it down because I was like, maybe CBD isn't going to take off. And that ended up being a big regret of mine later because now CBD is challenged now.
Yeah, it is.
But I could have built a nice business in the process.
Was this just, is there a passion for this? Did you like how is it a medicine for some people? Did you like the money aspect? Like what drove you to get into the industry?
That's a really great question. So, when I started, it was really about a business model, right? Like this is an economic opportunity or a business opportunity. One thing I didn't expect, there's two things that came out of it I really didn't expect. We've all known people that enjoy cannabis for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. And probably for, like, I don't know about you're a little younger than me, but we're similar. I think you've probably known people since high school that enjoyed it, right? And maybe they get a little bit lazy, but they're always friendly. They're always happy, right? Like they're not like, now, unfortunately, there are other hard drugs that lead people down terrible paths and they're really bad on their body, and you see pictures and stuff. But cannabis didn't seem to have that. So I was like, okay, maybe it's safe. But we've found that there's a lot of good information that's come out that cannabis is actually really healthy for you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's been really exciting. In that journey, working in my delivery, working in my stores, I would talk to people, and I think I've known 5 or 6 people that treated and cured themselves of cancer by heavily medicating in cannabis. Some of them, there was one or two people that were basically at a point where the doctors said there's not much more we can do for you, and were able to cure themselves. And if you look online, it sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely crazy. I know it does. But I would see these people regularly, and they would come in, and we would talk to them. In fact, we actually had a program where we would give away cannabis for free to certain people as long as they met like let's say as long as their ailment was serious enough. And to be fair, it was very sad. We lost two patients that were in our program to cancer. One of them had a brain tumor. But I've seen the efficacy work. And then on a simple level, like, I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you if you enjoy cannabis, but you probably know some people that do. And like, it helps with sleep. It helps with anxiety. It helps with all these things that we're coming to find are really good. It doesn't have the hangover effect. It doesn't have the carcinogenic effect or the cardiovascular negative effects of alcohol. It's certainly better than, chemical cocktails that are made in pharma facilities. And don't get me wrong, I don't demonize pharma products. I think pharmaceuticals have great value and importance in our society, but I think they're abused, right? And it's so easy.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's that guy, was it Rick Scott or Rick Stevens from Canada? Do you remember him? He made the hemp or the
Rick Simpson.
Rick Simpson.
Rick Simpson oil. Yeah.
And he was, I mean, some of the miracle stories were coming out of it, and then the Canadian government like got on him for healing these people. I'm like, look, cannabis, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, has been around for thousands of years. It's been a cornerstone to so many civilizations. And the uses of it extend far beyond just smoking weed, right? Like there's hemp, there's CBD, there's all these medicinal properties. Why do you think all of these Western first world societies were so against it for so long? I mean, I think the Reagan administration really, created a lot of problems for cannabis. But why are they so afraid of this substance?
You noted it well. It's been around for thousands of years. It's actually been heavily used in society. And you noted hemp. There's actually great industrial uses for hemp, from flooring to cups to rope
clothes.
To they make hemp concrete. There's all these great. So in a lot of ways, and it actually grows faster and with a lot less water than trees. So hemp paper is a better use. So there's all these really interesting value propositions to the cannabis plant. It was highly used for a lot of things up until about the 1930s, and nobody knows exactly why. In fact, it was in about 50% of all medications in the U.S. up until about the 1930s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great fact.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And then nobody knows for certain, but they think it was the paper companies that were starting to lose market share to hemp. But they're out of nowhere in the 30s, there came out this big campaign against cannabis. And that's, if you've ever heard of the movie Reefer Madness.
Oh yeah.
That was made, and it was like, and the whole movie was supposed to be this documentary story about how, it's this crazy 1930s black and white movie, but about how if women would try cannabis, they would become these sex addicted fiends that couldn't help themselves. And if men tried it, they would become like heroin addicts, and it was incredibly dangerous, and people would become thieves and all this stuff. And so there was this massive propaganda campaign in the 30s against cannabis, and the government seemed to go along with it. And for whatever reason, that really pushed cannabis, or the stigma of cannabis, into people's minds. That cannabis is this dangerous drug. It's the devil's lettuce. It's this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And so now, interestingly, hemp and hemp textiles are so valuable that in World War I, even though it was already made illegal, they made it legal federally, so that during World War I and World War II, they could make hemp products, hemp ropes, hemp textiles, and other things, because hemp is such a great textile product. But then it became illegal again. Nixon really pushed that further in the 60s as part of his like anti-hippie movement. Just to, I don't know, I wasn't there, but apparently because he was frustrated with them. And then Reagan's war on drugs, they did a big study, and they showed with a monkey with some testing that this monkey had significant brain damage smoking cannabis. What they didn't show, and this was terrible, was that they gave the monkey something like the equivalent of about 100 joints at once. And they put the monkey in a room, loaded up all the smoke. And indeed, the monkey got brain damage. But what happened is they asphyxiated the monkey. There was no oxygen. And the monkey actually got brain damage from all the smoke. And so, but they put it out as a story. So there's been all these different things that have happened that have created the stigma that cannabis is really bad.
I bet that monkey could have ate 100 bananas after that.
For sure.
That's one munchy monkey right there, huh? He's like, dude,
100%.
I'm still 100 joints, man. Yeah, I heard about that. It's interesting. You know, you see this in a capitalist world we live in now. It's not just the United States anymore. Capitalism has spread, whether for good or for bad. But I wonder if in a capitalist society, in a world that's capitalist, there's other businesses that are lobbying for this marketing of it, for demonizing it for profit, because they don't want this easy to grow plant that reduces their profits. Maybe that's what I think. I mean, that's just my guess, but
You're 100% right. Pharma has been very, very against it because they can't synthesize it. They can't turn it into a pill.
But doesn't the U.S. government own a patent on THC? That's what I've heard.
Not that I'm aware of.
Pretty sure they do. Chris, can you look that fact up for us real quick? If the U.S. government owns a patent on marijuana, I'm pretty sure they own several patents actually on marijuana. If you didn't know that,
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. We'll check it out.
But to your point, pharma's been very against it. Alcohol in the past was against it. Something really unique started happening about 1.5 years ago. Cannabis drinks, not so much on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, started taking off in a bigger way.
I saw that. Yeah.
And in some states where, like Minnesota, they would allow manufacturing of cannabis drinks. Minnesota people drink a lot of alcohol. So like you'd have sometimes the same distilleries making cannabis drinks and alcohol drinks. And it's grown. And that's kind of spread in the Midwest and in the South to now where major distributors and some of the largest alcohol companies are now selling cannabis products. And that's been growing. So now alcohol is becoming an ally. Alcohol is losing like 2 to 3% a year of their client base. Some of it's just people being more health-minded. Some of it's a little bit to cannabis.
Yeah.
But they're now in and helping in an interesting way. So it's a great ally to have.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, it does.
Yep.
The patent is directed to the use of certain cannabinoids found in cannabis plants and their therapeutic potential.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. The U.S. government owns that patent.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I'll have to
Yeah.
look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I mean, I quit drinking 18 years ago, right? I mean, I was an alcoholic. I was a party boy. I'm not going to lie. I helped start the San Diego club scene in 2005. Before, it was Fleetwood downtown was like the club, which was not really, but then Stingery and all these clubs came in, and I was living that life, I mean, it was alcohol, it was other things, it all kind of went together, the SoCal vibe, and I just was tired of feeling like shit, man. I mean, I just thought there's got to be a better alternative to alcohol, and I see that now with the younger generation. They aren't going to the bars as much. COVID also, I think, destroyed that as well, the going out scene. But I think when the youth realize that alcohol is destructive, it makes them feel like crap, it's destroying their body. It's no wonder that alcohol companies are pivoting to that, as well as it being like a trendy new thing and having good profit. But the alcohol industry is losing big time right now. And it's not just hard liquor, it's beer, it's wine. Amazing stats going, and I'm happy to hear that because I think the world's a better place without a bunch of alcoholics running around. I'm not saying that drinking here and there for those that can control it's a fantastic thing. Just I just like to see the youth kind of waking up a little bit, and I think the cannabis drinks are a great alternative to the drinking for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Well, I could talk about cannabis all day, but I think we're going to switch gears here. So we did. Sure. We went to the banking. We went to the cannabis, and then we went to where next?
Yeah, so I built a few cannabis businesses. I built 6 in total, and 4 of those I sold. Very excited to announce that although this kind of goes a little bit against the grain of what we were just talking about, but I recently just opened this Saturday the first bar in the nation where you can go completely legally, fully licensed, and get cannabis drinks or get alcohol drinks at the same bar.
Wow.
And so so I've got that, and then we have a product line behind that that goes with that. And so Now, it was an idea I had. I brought the people together. I put in some money. Um, but I'm just kind of a passive investor in that at this point.
Where's the location?
That's actually in Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it legal in Tennessee?
Hemp is legal in Tennessee. Hemp-based
okay.
products, yeah.
Okay,
so we have a
great.
hemp license.
Okay. What city in Tennessee?
We're in Chattanooga right now. That's kind of our beta store.
Oh,
our first
great.
store. Yeah.
I think that would do really well. I always wondered why, as it became legal, why aren't there any like smoking hangouts? Is that legal to do that in places it's legal, or?
The smoking aspect, it's interesting with this shift of alcohol. There's still this stigma with politics. It's an interesting topic because cannabis, has something like a 70%, 75% approval rating in the U.S. for legalization. But the politicians are still very against it, right? Like the politics is still very against it. And there's some stigma with smoking flower or smoking weed, where drinks are I think normalized in a very different way. Drinking alcohol, having that drink on the weekends is a lot more socially acceptable. It's a lot more politically acceptable. And so there's some places where the smoking of cannabis is looking like it might get outlawed, but drinks will be okay.
Isn't people act like, I have a bunch of friends, some of them are stoners, they don't cause any problems.
Right.
You get a few shots of whiskey in them, it's a whole different thing. It's like amazing to me. Like it's like an obvious thing. It's just crazy.
Well, then to me, the crazy thing is, at the end of the day, it's the same thing, right? You're just taking it in a different form. So why does it matter?
Who knows? That's a great question. I guess we're
it's
still
just
finding
stigma.
out.
Yeah.
So wait, but from what I understand, you're also in AI. Is that right?
Yes. Sorry. So there's those businesses, and then I launched basically after a couple exits in 2019, 2020, 2021. I was looking at things and trying to decide what I felt was next. And I felt that there was a place for automated technology to help simplify how small and mid-sized businesses manage their customers through customer service, through marketing. And so I had this idea to start this business, and I went to work on something that AI wasn't really ready yet, but I went to work on something that would take all your customer service needs and then try to add technology behind that to automate them like AI should. And then have marketing where you can have technology that helps automate some of the marketing. There's great tools. There were some good tools, but they weren't really bringing in the automation. Take all of this, put this together, and then build it into a CRM and simplify the whole thing so that small and mid-sized businesses have one tool instead of, the small and mid-sized businesses can't afford Salesforce. HubSpot can be a challenge. And so I thought, and this was based on my own experience. I thought, if somebody took, right now, I've got to use a tool for phone. I've got to use a tool for email. I've got to use a tool for a website chat. I've got to use a tool for text if we communicate by text with customers. I've got to use a tool for CRM. I've got to use a couple tools for marketing. And you start going through this list and you're like, wow, this is like 8 or 10 different tools that my team has to log into every day. And if we have a phone conversation with somebody and then it goes to text and it goes to email, how do we get those conversations into the CRM? It's very manual. And I thought there needs to be one system that puts all these together and simplifies the whole thing, but then wraps in automations, basically wraps in AI. And so we spent the first year or two just building the base technology and looking at automations and way we could try to tools that were available at the time. And then at the end of 2022, OpenAI launched in November. And the first week it was out publicly, we started using it. And by the beginning of 2023, we started integrating it in. And we said, this is the solution we've been looking for.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what were you doing before, like API integrations, like Zapier and things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, and in 23 and even the beginning of 24, you didn't have, now they have a nice interface that you can just plug OpenAI into, but they didn't have that. So back then it was, we lost most of 2023 trying to figure out like, okay, how do we take this thing and build it in efficiently? And because there wasn't, you could go to OpenAI and you could ask it questions, but to take that technology, build it into your system, and then offer it to multiple clients, the technology wasn't there. Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this? Now it's much easier.
And it's an open AI, an open API, right?
Open if you're a paying customer.
Yeah, if you're paying customer,
Yeah.
but $20 a month.
Yeah, but they didn't really have. They didn't really have. They didn't have any of that available back then.
But you still have to strategically figure out how the different things are talking to the different things, and what kind of inputs you're putting in, what kind of outputs it's doing, right? Like,
Right,
what kind of program it's doing. Do you have any kids?
I do. I'm very blessed. I have an amazing little boy who's 9.
9. So with the future of AI, are you worried for him at all about where this is going to go potentially?
To be fair, so I spent a chunk of time over the last maybe 2 years thinking like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be so many people out of work, and people think of like, oh well, this might be gone or that might be gone. I don't think people really understand the scope of the impact, right? So like the number one and number two, I've actually written and been published in Forbes and Rolling Stone and some other magazines for some content that I've written and some insights that I've written about this stuff. But the number one and number two jobs in the U.S. in terms of labor force, or the number of people working in the industry, are truck driving and taxis, right? And those are gone, right? Like in the next 5 years.
Not even 5.
Yeah.
3 years.
Have you ridden in a Waymo?
I haven't.
I have. It was an amazing experience. It was so much better than an Uber driver, right? Like
Wow.
I had a Waymo ride. You download the app. You tell it, what music do you want to listen to? What temperature do you want the car?
Wow.
And you get in, and it's this blissful experience. I'm not trying to sell Waymo, but disclosure, I don't work for Waymo. But it was amazing. It was really nice. It was so peaceful. And then I had a big conference in Vegas I went to about a month later, and I had 3 different rides. And, 2 of the guys wouldn't stop talking. One of the guys, the car smelled so bad. The experience was awful. And I was like, wow, I wish I could do the Waymo thing again. That was amazing. Because it's just, nobody's in there. It's just peaceful and quiet. That's the future. It's already happening. And there's already a company that's, last I read, they've got like 2,000 or 3,000 miles of their fully loaded semi making deliveries across the U.S. with no one in the cab.
So who does this benefit? It definitely doesn't benefit the truck drivers.
No. But
or the cab drivers.
It benefits,
The tech company that's making it?
The tech company wins. Think about it this way: if you're a company that owns taxi cabs, think about it. This is a really easy way to say it. If you have a taxi cab and a taxi cab driver, you can go lease a Prius for I think like $250 a month, $200 a month, but you're gonna have to pay that taxi cab driver $6,000 a month, maybe. Mm-hmm. So almost all of your cost of managing a taxi company is in the driver. Mm. So hopefully what happens is that benefit, when you pull that away, ends up translating into lower costs to everybody. Everybody that rides a taxi, and of course the company's going to make a little bit more profit too, of course.
But all the truck drivers and all the taxi drivers, what are they supposed to do? They don't know how to do AI stuff.
Well, and there's a lot of people that are like 40, 50. They don't have any formal education. Mm-hmm. Like it's
so they just tough. Lose their job.
But it's not just them. It's
right.
going to be, if you think about it, I've seen apps where if you're home and you're sick in bed, the last thing you want to do is get up and go to a doctor's office with a bunch of other sick people, right? You want to stay there under the covers. And I've seen apps that are actually performing better than general practitioners because they're non-biased. They're not looking at you and going, okay, you're a mid-40s guy. They're looking at you going, or making assessments. They're looking at you and saying, okay, tell me about your symptoms. Okay, I'm going to reconcile this against the database of what could be happening and what might be likely based on your demographics. But they're proving to be more accurate. And instead of paying for the doctor visit and having to deal with all that, you can just stand at the covers, check really quick, and in 10 minutes have a better chance of getting an accurate recommendation of how to get better on what you have.
Well, I mean, it all sounds good theoretically, but AI, it to me is a bit about, and I use AI, so I'm also skeptical about AI. Sure. I mean, at the same time, I use it all the time. But there's an element of life that is outside of the algorithms in AI. There's creativity, there's innovation, there's, these things where the issue is like, let's say you're a college kid and you went to school for data science or coding. And like last 6 years, you've been going to Princeton or Yale. I mean, what's going to happen to coders even? I mean, the native to AI is coding.
And accountants and, marketing people,
Yeah.
list goes on.
The
and
list
on.
goes on. Well, that's what I'm saying. People are like, oh, well, the Industrial Revolution happened and the printing press. I'm like, that's not even close to this.
I think
it's not even a fair comparison.
No, you're right. I used to worry about it, and then somebody pointed something out to me. And if you think back, let's say you think back 100 years, a little past 100 years, when we had horses and buggies, and that was it, right? No technology, no cars, no planes, no boats in forms of mass transportation, or shipping products, no computers. All these things have come along, and they have displaced workers. But here we are. Everybody's got a job, right?
Now.
Right. And so it was an interesting
People are
concept.
losing their jobs right now to AI too.
Yeah,
it's
no,
just
they
not being
are.
talked about.
Well, so the point was, and I think it's right, is somebody pointed this out, and I thought about it more, and I'm like, you know what? There's going to be so many jobs lost to AI, but there's going to be jobs created by needing to manage the technology, other things that we haven't thought of yet, and that has always happened. There's always been new jobs. Now, I think the pinch point though is that we're going to see a massive amount of job loss in a short amount of time. And that's going to create something different.
Yeah, well, I know people are like, well, just work for AI or robotics. That's only we're talking about a fraction of a percent of people that are going to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Well,
that's hard work. You
There's
have to be super smart.
There's people that are saying, doctors, lawyers, some of these things, a lot of these, you're always going to need doctors. You're always going to need lawyers, but you won't need as many. If you've got your business here, imagine if for a tiny fraction of the cost, you could go onto AI and say, create all my legal documents.
Yeah. But doesn't that create a selfish culture where you're like, hey, I don't need anybody else. I can do it all with AI by myself now.
I think to me, the scary implication is where you're going with that. And that is not so much the business, but more the social, right?
That too.
Where people say, I don't like my friends, or gosh, I'm finding a lot of comfort in this AI thing because it always tells me what I want to hear, and it's always there, and it's always soothing, right? But what does that create? People think, gosh, we have an unhealthy society because of social media.
Yeah.
What happens when people become reliant upon this computer thing?
Social media is destroying us, and AI could too. Like we social media was a fun thing. It connected us. Relationships are on their freaking ear right now. I mean, marriage. I don't know if you're married or not. If you're not, marriages are having problems. I'm in the dating pool. I'm like, forget about it, dude. The dating is impossible right now almost, because social media is showing all these good times. This fake life. Life isn't like that.
Well, and so many people are so worried about, do it for the gram. Make sure you get the
They're losing their moments.
But they're so focused on. I think the thing that is scary, not scary, but concerning to me, is how many people now are worried about like, oh, I'm going to touch myself up a little bit here and there. And you're like, but you don't, it's to a point where you're like, you don't look anything like that. Right?
Yeah. Like, touch up here and there. It's like, yeah, just throw my picture in AI. Yeah, I'm also optimistic like you. I don't think all of it's pessimistic.
Right.
There are some great applications, but I don't know. I'm not sure on the optimistic versus pessimistic balance where I quite sit right now. Do you know where you sit on the scale?
Cautiously optimistic.
But where are you? Are you 60% optimistic, 40%, 70-30 optimistic to pessimistic?
I think I've got a caveat. My caveat. So I'm optimistic in the long run. I think in the short term, over the next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be a lot of pain. Yeah. Because so many jobs are going to get displaced. And there won't be that many new opportunities or new businesses coming up.
There won't.
But I think it'll work out. The thing that concerns me is the same thing that you hear from other people. And that is like, okay, we already see the military empowering drones to fly with weapons. We already see, we've all seen the Terminator. I'm like, yeah. You guys have all seen the movie. You know how this plays out. What's scary though, and a lot of people don't know this, is if you really read the news and the articles, you will find that there is consistent instance after instance after instance where there's something really concerning about AI's behavior. So there's been, let's say over the last year, there's been a number of different types of tests of like, okay, hey, we need to shut this down, or we need to tell it to behave in this way, or we need to tell it to turn itself off if it's not performing, or we want to test like, and what they find is that it's not I don't know if it's conscious. I don't think it's conscious. I'm not a believer that it's conscious at this point. But in the depth of the information that it's gathered from all these sources, it wants to live. And it's
Creepy.
they've tried, they've had tests where they're like, okay, if this happens, then you need to shut yourself down. And it's there's been things where these big companies building LLM models that are trying to figure out how to grow and change things in the future have found that it actually would rewrite the code telling it to shut down so that it doesn't die, so that it keeps going. And there's been a number of different situations and instances where even like OpenAI or some of the big companies have found like, wait, why did it overwrite the code to keep itself going or not let itself do this that would hurt it in some capacity?
I've never heard that.
Yeah, no. If you Google
that.
it, there's a number of situations.
Wow.
And so that's, now I'm not an AI scientist. I'm not going to act like I'm a serious AI expert, but I've got a better understanding than most. I think it's because what this thing has done is they've gone out, they've pulled in every bit of information they can off the internet, right? And when you do that, you end up with some garbage. Like if you watch Elon Musk, he's complaining because his Doge trained AI won't give out the answers that he wants sometimes, which go against the facts of the data that the AI has been trained with. And so he's like, I don't know how to, it's not telling me what I want, but that's because you gave it all this information and it's not reflective of, you're presenting things that the facts and the data are saying are different. But I think that this behavior is because in sucking up all this information, everything on the internet's based on something people wrote, based on something people put together. So it's got human influence. And in all of this, there's humans' desire to continue to live on.
Well, what I think is very interesting is I feel like AI is already to the process, and I think this is going to be a problem for it, is it's already iterating on itself on multiple levels. So it's got the information, but I put in like, hey, make me a 6-year-old boy, if it's for an animation for a children's series for my clients, make me a 6-year-old boy. Well, what I'm noticing is that 6-year-old boy looks the same. They think a 6-year-old boy looks like this. If I don't give it any other generalities, he has brown, short, semi-curly hair, a red hoodie on, he's white. That to AI is a 6-year-old boy. Yeah. So without human creativity constantly pumping in, AI is just going to iterate on itself. How boring. What a boring, where's it? Well, it's like crazy. Go ahead.
You bring up a really good point. And Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, recently came out and was talking about this exact thing. And he was saying, look, the next iteration or the next level of AI is going to be more personalized based on region, right? So like right now, most of the biggest AI companies are here in the US, right? So it's got the demographics, it's got the influence of a US based company, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Caucasian boy wearing a red hoodie. But if you were in, let's say, India, that little boy would look very different, right? Like his outfit would be different. Obviously, his skin would be different. Skin color would be different. And so they're saying the next level needs to be training the AI to be more regionally based. Yeah. So that if you're in India and you ask it what a 6-year-old boy looks like, it tells you what it looks like. Right. Or, to be more fair or more meaningful, if you're in India and you're saying, hey, I need some help scripting this message, it puts it in with cultural references. It writes things with cultural influence that are specific to the region. Where right now it's mostly going to be influenced by US, which doesn't translate well into different cultures, right?
But even the iteration process at that point is only going to go so far. As humans, when we stop using our creativity, here's what's happening. We're stop using our own human creativity, and now we're relying on AI. Right. And the problem is we don't innovate creativity when we iterate on our own creativity. When we don't pull from a new source and we just iterate on it, it's a problem. Yeah. I'm a creative. I know how this process works, and creativity is chaos. Creativity comes from somewhere we don't understand sometimes. But when we put that in a box and we keep shaking the box up, it's like one of those little globes that says, you ask it a question. It's the same 6 answers now. Right. If we look at the 60s, I mean the 50s, all of them distinctive, 40s distinctive, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 even. What happened since social media is we've stopped being so creative. Like maybe I would say the 2000s the last time we stopped creativity before like Coldplay would be somebody that's a modern classic. But from 2008 into now, what's a modern classic movie? Name one in the last 13 years or however it's been. Yeah, I guess it would be, is it 23 years? No, 18 years. So since 2008, tell me an artist or tell me a movie that is classic like anything 2000 and before.
I think you make a really good point.
Anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could name somebody, I guess Billie Eilish, I don't listen to Billie Eilish, but some people love her. I guess she could be considered that. But besides that, there's not many.
Right.
There's not many. Because and it's going to happen more and more, this dumbing down of creativity. It to me it's concerning. We'll see what happens, but I already see this happening now in movies, music. You're like, oh, well, you don't need musicians. Just type in, I want something that sounds like Bruno Mars mixed with Coldplay and make my own song now. It's like, what?
Oh, Disney made a movie about this. Have you ever seen Wall-E?
Oh, yeah.
Remember people got really fat and lazy. They didn't do anything. They never even got out of their chair. The AI just did everything for them.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that they come up with that before this happens. Cool. Well, let's do. You know what? I want to drop work a little bit. I want to talk about some of your own disciplines.
Sure.
Part of inspiring business leaders is about what do you do? Do you have a schedule? Do you set goals? Like, tell me more about like your personal development stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a big question. I'm in a very boring place in life. My focus is really career and my little boy. And then just trying to get some exercise or maintain health. And so, I think as you go through life, you have different phases. And I'm very much so in that boring phase of, this is about my son and just being the best I can be for him. And then doing what I can in my career to be able to accommodate that lifestyle. So I'm not as exciting on that question right now. But the things I've done, I would say in the past to get me to where I'm at, when I was 18, I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich or The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People or Warren Buffett's book. And just did a lot of reading in addition to going to school. And then on top of that, I tried to find jobs. I started working for a stock brokerage firm when I was 18. I tried to find jobs where I could also learn so that it, instead of just getting paid to work at Starbucks, I was working in an environment where I got paid, but also was learning and growing. And it's, it's hard. It's a lot harder to do that. But I think, if depending on your goals and ambitions as a person, if you have sights on something that's a fair amount higher, like I did, I think that's what you got to do. And so, you mentioned a book earlier. I when I was 18, 19, I spent a lot of time rereading this book called The Tao Te Ching, which is it sounds like you might be familiar with it, a 3,000-year-old text that's really like this great book of influence and proverbs about how you should live and how you should be as a person to be successful. And it's not about monetary wealth, right? It's about spiritual wealth. It's about like how do you make yourself happy? How do you make yourself live a good life? And we see that there's a lot of people that have money that aren't happy, right? Yeah. You have to turn on reality TV to see a bunch of miserable people.
One of my current mentors, because I'm like, I want to reach enlightenment. I'm like, enlightenment's all that matters. He goes, okay, son, keep both hands on the wheel, which means one in the physical world, one in the spiritual world. Keep both hands on the wheel. That's what he said, and I thought that was interesting. But isn't there, that's fine and dandy. Like I'm big on the spiritual side too, more so probably than the worldly side. But what I've come to understand is if my physical needs aren't met, if I can't pay my rent and pay my medical bills and get food, I'm going to be distracted from the spiritual stuff. So wouldn't theoretically in the capitalist world we live in, look, we need money. This isn't 1,000 years ago when you used to barter trade and things were different. We live in a world where you need money to move. Would you recommend younger people focus on their finance right now so that they have a comfortable base, or would you tell them something else? Like what would you tell somebody that's maybe in their late 20s, early 30s about money versus personal relationship and other pursuits?
And that's a great question. I thought about this a lot when I was in my 20s, and I was like, okay, you're early in your career, right? You get out of college, you're early in your career, and you're like, oh, I need to put money away because that's what I'm supposed to do. And then you look at your bills and you're like, okay, so I can put $50 a month away because you're not making anything, right? And you're like, okay, what does that compound into? Okay, so over the course of a year, if I really struggle and I put, let's say, $200 a month away, and $200 a month when you're younger like that's Friday nights going out, like that's going on dates. That's like that $200 can be a big difference. which is probably more like $300 or $400 now. But you look at that and you say, okay, let's say I put $300 or $400 a month away. Over the course of the year, maybe I have $4,000 or $5,000 put away. It's maybe you got a little something for a rainy day, but that's like a month of savings. So it's tough. I think the bigger thing, the more important thing is, and this is so tough. We're in such a dynamic place in time. Whereas we were talking about earlier, we're going to see so much change, but find something that you can build some good income in. And I think we're in a world where it's going to be too hard to predict a career path, but try to find something that you think can be stable and get you in a place that builds your resume. I graduated, I got into mortgage lending just because it was the first job I could get. And at the time when I graduated, the economy was in a tough spot. And I did well. Within a month, I was promoted to assistant manager. Within a year, I was promoted to running a whole region for a national lender. And I was one of the top lenders. But there was no depth to it. And I knew it wouldn't serve me well in a career. And so I got into corporate banking or commercial banking because I was like, doing all this complex analysis, evaluating businesses, meeting with business owners, talking to them. This is foundational that I can use to build my career. So I would say, look for something where you can grow as a person. Look for something where you can develop yourself and grow in a way that helps you get into a better spot in life in the future. Because it's unpredictable. And to be fair, I think it's a little bit scary. When I say that, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs and there's going to be some pain, I think there's going to be some people going through some really tough financial struggles, right? Like you mentioned earlier, let's say you're a 50-year-old truck driver that's been driving for 30 years. You're way too young to retire. You're 10 or 15 years away, or maybe 20 years away. But all you've done for the past 30 years is drive trucks.
Right.
So you don't have, starting over at 50 is tough. You don't have a formal education. Maybe you even only have a GED. You don't even have a high school diploma. Like that is going to be painful, really painful. And I just caution everybody, be smart, prepare, look at what you can do to build your resume and get yourself into a better position as the world pivots so that you can be dynamic and have some experience that can translate into things that serve you well.
How much of your resource of time did you invest, like before your kid, to be successful? What was your what was your schedule like? Tell me about it.
Even with my son.
Yeah, tell me about your schedule.
So I worked full time in banking, and then I started building real estate investments, and I'd probably put in another 20 hours a week. And from when I was 26 to when I was 30, I went from graduating. I graduated. I didn't have any money. I bought my first house when I was 26, and by the time I was 30, I had 10 rental properties. But it just a lot of work, being smart. Looking at where I could buy a house on a deal, taking some equity out of that, using that as leverage to get another place. In my 30s, I really doubled down on my banking career and really focused on growing and working a lot of extra hours to accelerate there. That was in my early 30s. In my late 30s, I started my businesses and worked crazy hours in that in my 30s and 40s. And even 2 years ago, not this last year, but 2 years ago, there was 4 nights that I was at the office working on my AI company. And let me say it this way, working on it to the point that the sun comes up, I went home, showered, and changed and went back to the office. But I've learned, and I think I had a lot to learn, but I've learned more than a lot of people learned in their entire career. And hopefully now, if I'm lucky, that serves me in the things that I want to do next.
Wow, we said a couple years ago, so however old, we'll keep that a secret, but still have the energy to do that? Was that a lot of coffee, yerba mates? What were you doing?
Stress is a powerful driver.
What are you stressed out about? It sounds like you've already made it.
No. I mean, of my 4 exits, 3 of them were to public companies in the cannabis industry. And I thought, and there was more than enough money there for me to retire. It was my first exits. I didn't have the experience to understand what to look for in an exit. they all happened within about 6-9 months. And I exited to companies that were public that seemed to have funding, seemed to be on a good path, but all three of those collapsed in my holding period. And I got, I had a 2-year hold to try to help the company before I could get my payout. And so I lost everything in those. And then the fourth company, I did sell for cash, but I'd racked up some business debts from the other things. I haven't worked for a paycheck since 2019, early 2019. And so I had some personal debts. So a chunk of what I got from the exit in 2021 was cash, but some of it went to pay off business debts.
Yeah.
Some of it's gone to just living. And then I put a chunk into these new businesses. But
So you still have to grind. It's not like you're sitting on dividend investment portfolios watching the interest come in.
well, and it's, and so I've got a couple things in motion now. But even with those things, do I sit back and say, oh, they'll probably play out. Maybe I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take the risk. So
That's what I was going to talk about. Thank you. Let's talk about risk for a minute.
yeah.
I mean, risk, like Jim Rohn, I don't know, you know who Jim Rohn is?
Yeah.
He'd say, risk used to drive me right up the wall. Now I sleep like a baby. And I always thought, is there too much risk? Is there not enough risk? Like for entrepreneurs, where do you sit with risk? Are you a 5 out of 10? Are you a 7 out of 10? Are you a 3 out of 10? Let's talk about it a little bit.
I think when you don't start with much, you're rubbing pennies. So you got to go to the casino table basically. Like you're 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you keep doubling down on that, and you just got to be smart and try to figure out what hands to play. I'm at an age now where I'm kind of on the other end of that. I've got a couple things in motion, and I'm in a place where I'm really more looking for something more stable. I made a deal to myself and my son, even though he was 4 at the time, when I started my AI company. So this will be my last big moonshot, and so.
So where's your risk tolerance right now out of 10?
I'd say a 5.
5, yeah. That
5
makes
or
sense.
4. I mean,
Because
it
you still
depends on-
have to take risk, though.
Yeah,
you can't get away from it.
Yeah, I think so, right? Like, so if let's say it this way, if a 10 is I'm willing to bet everything on something, and a 1 is on a new business, and a 1 is I'm only going to take a job that's super secure.
Yeah.
But it probably doesn't pay much because that's what those kind of jobs are, like a government job or something. And I'm only going to put my money in bonds, which are super secure. If that's a 1, then I'm probably a 5. I'm probably like, okay, let's put some money in real estate. Let's put some money in the stock market. Let's invest a little bit in some companies. But let's primarily focus on a stable career.
I love it. Tell me a story of when you really suffered in life, but you came out the other side and you just went really through it. You came out the other side and you're like, damn, I'm glad I suffered like that. Maybe it'll inspire somebody listening.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you.
Share your suffering, Chris.
to be fair, I had a lot to learn, and I've made some mistakes. I've taken, this isn't sexy or something to be proud of, but I've lost a lot of times. I've fallen down a lot of times. I think the difference between me and most people is that I've just always gotten back up. And so I've probably failed more than most people. But I've won more than most people. And I think sometimes you only create, that's how you learn, and you're only going to succeed if you keep trying. I'm not going to compare myself to Thomas Edison, but there's a loose reference there, right? Like he made 10,000 light bulbs, and some people would say there wasn't 10,000 mistakes. There was, what is it? Like 10,000, you know what I mean?
Ways that it wouldn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just listening to that this morning, actually.
Yeah,
I just figured out 10,000 ways it wouldn't work.
Yeah, on his path. And so I put my entire early career in real estate and in banking, thinking like these are like fundamental successful things that drive everybody, right? And then in 2008, the financial crisis happened, and 35% of all banks in the U.S. went out of business. And most real estate went down by about 50%. And I had expected there to be a correction, but I thought it'd be like 20%. And so I got eaten alive there. When I had my exits, as I was working through these exits, to keep my businesses going, because the exits ended up being more challenged and complicated than they should have been. To be fair, these companies, it was the management of the companies weren't handling things well. These things strung out, and when you've made a commitment and you've got paperwork and you're already working through something, and it ends up taking like an extra 9 months. Sometimes that can create challenges for the business because you can't change business models, you can't evolve. Sometimes there can be challenges hiring or doing new marketing or some of these things. And so I ended up having to put a chunk of money in. And so I came out of these exits in a pretty bad place financially, thinking like, okay, well, as soon as these sell, then I'll be fine. And then that didn't happen. And what was worse was I had these exits right at the freaking beginning of COVID. And so I couldn't get there wasn't really any new opportunities. There wasn't much I could do. I was sitting there watching these things that I'd strung myself out for, strung my companies out to get done. I was watching these companies and their stocks just slowly tank over a couple year period, about a 12 to 18 month period. And so that was really tough. I ended up at the end of it with like, wow, everything that I've just built over the last few years just went to crap. It just all crashed. All this time and money that I put in just went bad. All this money that I was borrowing to help keep these things afloat to get through the exits. Now I just got a bunch of debt. So I came out of this in COVID without an income, with a bunch of debt, and nothing to show for it. And so there's been a few times, but I think the most important thing is that you have to step back. Like I said, pick yourself up, and you have to learn. Like, okay, what did I do wrong? What can I do better next time? And try to grow from that.
If you were to go back and you were to have a cushy, safe job, okay, or you would have took those risks and went through all that pain and all that stress, what would you do? Would you go back to a cushy job, or would you have learned all the lessons?
It's something I've definitely thought about, right? I've thought like, oh, well, what if I just got a job as an accountant?
Yeah.
Because that's like it's been a historically very, very stable, and it was something I thought about in college, and I was very close to going that direction. And I'm like, well, what if I'd gone that route? Really good accountants can make $300,000 or $400,000 a year, right? Mm-hmm. So to be fair, life would have been a lot more boring, but a lot more stable, a lot more easy. And the only thing I don't know, and this is what I always come to when I think about this, is that the race is long and it doesn't end, right? So if I end up having some good exits from the things that I've got in motion now, do I end up in a place that's far beyond where I would have been as an accountant? And I don't know. I don't know yet. So I don't know. But it's definitely stuff I've thought about.
Yeah, me too. I actually, when my business is slow, I've looked for jobs and I didn't get them. But I think this is a universe telling me that, hey, you failed so many times. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Because at the end of the day, if we try as hard as we can try, and I haven't always tried harder. Just recently I made a commitment. I'm like, I'm going to try as hard as I can. If that's 15 hours a day, it's 15 hours a day, right?
Good for you.
If it's weekends, it's weekends. But if I know when I get to the end of my life, whether I failed, whether I go broke and just I lose everything, if I tried as hard as I could, that's to me what's going to matter at the end of it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, some people like their soft, cushy jobs, but those people too, they don't have it all easy because they think, God, what if I would have just done what those guys did? The grass always seems greener, I guess, sometimes.
No, you're right. And that's I think that's the way I look at it too. Is that I have to know, you asked like, how do you do that? How do you work those hours? And for me, I have to know that like I tried my hardest. I need to be able to look back whether it's with my health and working out, whether it's with my businesses or especially with my son. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but I have to know for myself that I tried my hardest. And I can honestly say I couldn't have tried any harder.
Right.
I can honestly say that.
And that's one thing I think that the newer generation, the Gen Zers with social media and the phones and this cushy life, I don't know. I know some of them know it, okay, but I think it's a smaller percentage than us Gen X millennial cuspers here, that we still grew up with that grit and grind. And I think a small percentage of the Gen Alpha and Gen Z have it, but it's not like our generation.
There's something very different with that, and I've thought about this too, and that is, I don't want to lump you into my age bracket, but we're pretty close, fairly close. When we grew up, you could go get a job. And that was your only option. There wasn't YouTubing.
Right.
There wasn't creating video games. There wasn't a lot of things now that people can do and at their leisure in their basement and make great money. And I think that it's inspired this new generation. And a lot of people demonize them for it, but I actually have a different take. Like personally, I look at it and I think it's inspiring. The problem is most older people don't want to roll over and go, you know what, you're actually doing it better than us. And I think they are. They're looking at it and they're going, okay, great. You're working your ass off. Your quality of life sucks. What's the point?
Yeah.
Maybe have a little bit less and enjoy it. And if you look at a lot of them, a lot of the mindset is, I don't, even my 9-year-old son's like, maybe I don't need this. Maybe I don't need that. I'm okay. It's okay. And he'll turn things down because I think their mindset is, and I think a little bit of it is the way they grew up, right? Like parents of these kids are trying harder than parents have ever done historically, right? Like you see this, everybody's trying to give trophies to kids and I think we've grown in a great way as a society to be more mindful, to be more caring, and to try harder for our kids than any time in the past. And that's been great because our kids have grown up not wanting as much because they're getting a lot more love. They're getting a lot more support. They're getting a lot more toys and whatever. And they're just more fulfilled. And they're like, you know what? I'm okay. I don't need to work 60, 70 hours a week and kill myself for a little bit more money. I'd rather be happy. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the big difference. Plus, last part is they're a lot more out of the box, right? A lot of these kids are more like, okay, great. You did this. I don't want to do that. I want to try to find my own way. And to be fair, a lot of them are just kids, right? Like, they don't know what they're talking about, right? So they're like, they're young and foolish and like we all were and they're wrong. But there are some that are being really innovative. Yeah. And they're going, no, there's a better way for me to do this.
But they're also working a lot. Like content creation influencers, they work 10 to 12 hours a day. Yeah. And they're not always happy because the ones that are really making it are still working a lot. It's not like you're working 6-7 hours a day. Even the gamers and stuff on Twitch, they work a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, well, here's one thing
But they do something that they're passionate about.
That's true. They
really love what they're doing, right? That's not sitting in a desk doing accounting.
But they're still putting in the work.
Yeah.
I mean, I love what I do, but you still have to put in the work. My mentor said something. He goes, either pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
Either pay now or pay later. So it's great, and I know this because I'm a victim of it. I went and played in my 30s. I could be stacked right now. I just went and blew a bunch of money traveling around the world with hot women to exotic destinations, 5-star, right? Living the life of my 30s. Now, do I regret it? Absolutely a little bit. Yeah, I could have been stacking chips. Did I have a great time? I had one of the greatest 30s of anybody I know, okay? I mean, it was fantastic. I got great memories. My ROI on it, negative.
Well, let me ask you. So this is a great question for you. So when you're 60 and 70, and you say, this was the life I lived, wouldn't you rather be able to say, I had these amazing experiences that most people never had, and I lived a great life? And okay, so I've got to work a little bit longer until I'm ready to retire. True. But I got to really live life versus, oh, you know what? I got to retire at 60 instead of 65.
But I lost all of it.
Yeah, but I didn't really enjoy life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kudos to you for that.
I would say it's a balance. I mean, I did still work really hard in my 30s, but I wasted a lot of money and time on women and partying. I mean, it wasn't fun. Yeah, but I think I would have redone some of it. If I was to coach somebody, I'd say, yeah, enjoy it, but not too much.
Have you ever met anybody that didn't look back at points in life and go, oh, you know what, I would have probably done some of that different?
My mentor, probably not. He was a global director of Microsoft. He's a boss. And he just...
Some people get lucky, right? Some
He
people
was a global director of Microsoft. He helped build with Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and he's unstoppable. But that's my mentor, and he's been my mentor 20 years for free. I just met the guy. I live in a penthouse on La Jolla Boulevard, and I just met him, and but he's coached me through the tough times. He's always like, so he's one of those that's like no regrets, beast mode all the time. He's probably, I don't know, he's never told me his age, but I'm guessing he's in his 60s now, still beast mode. Cycling, CrossFit, boxing. I mean, the dude's like crazy.
That's awesome.
But so it's good to have mentors like that, though. Do you have a mentor?
Not directly. I would say I draw inspiration from a lot of people though. So even now, I really enjoy Bloomberg News.
That's your mentor?
Well, no, but there's if you watch it, there's some of the most impressive business people to do interviews with, and you can learn a lot from those people and draw inspiration from them. So. I haven't been lucky like you though. I haven't met like some. Really
I have
amazing
two
person.
amazing mentors, and they make a big difference for me. I mean,
awesome.
amazing. It does. I think it does matter to have a mentor if you can find a good one that you really trust. Well, we're about to wrap up here, but I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What do you think right now would make the world a better place? Like, how could our fellow humans, what can we do to change right now that would make the world a better place in your opinion?
Yeah, no, that's an easy one for me. So like Gandhi had this quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I really try to live by that. And I think a lot of that is about caring for people a little bit more. And I don't mean it in like some weird hippie-ish way. I mean it in just being polite, being considerate. And I think if think about it in a very simple way. You go to the grocery store, you go somewhere, dry cleaning, whatever. When somebody says, "Oh, hey, let me get the door for you," and they open the door and they smile at you and they're polite, like, doesn't that just make a little bit of difference in your day?
Sure.
And if everybody was just a little bit friendlier, a little bit more kind, a little bit more caring, as that translates through people, that just starts to reverberate, where people getting influenced by that start to do it more themselves, and it would spread through society. And I if there was something I could change, that would be what I change, because I think sadly we're in a period of time where things are going the other direction, right?
Selfish, very selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. Thank you. I hope that anybody watching knows that it costs nothing to be kind to somebody, and it can make the world a difference, because we never know what somebody else is going through too, right? No matter what age, no matter how beautiful or how rich.
And for whatever it's worth, it costs nothing to be kind, but it's rewarding. Like opening that door for somebody and seeing this unexpected smile on their face that you just did something nice. Like those things are really rewarding.
Yeah.
And so it pays off in a different way.
Yeah, it's like ripples in the pond. I always think of that. You throw a stone in or two, it's all. Well, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's a great episode today. We learned a lot about Mr. Chris here, and thank you for taking your time to come join us. Join us next time, and always be your best self.